So Larian Studios released a community update today, community update number 22, which is probably the final community update before the game officially releases on August 3rd for PC. So exciting stuff. We're only a few days away. Now do note that I am kind of busy right now. I'm doing something more important than making this video right now. Some of you guys can probably guess what that is. So this video is not going to be as well put together as some of my previous videos. Well, let's jump right into it. Community update number 22, Power of a Mind Flayer. And if this first part already feels spoilery to you, then I would just suggest that you leave the video right now. This is a public community update by Larian that I'm going to be going over. Some things might be a little bit spoilery-ish, but I don't know. Sometimes I get yelled at for doing spoilers. Other times people thank me. I just never know how to do it on the internet. So I'm just warning you right now, I am going over this entire community update, okay? So any of you guys who watched the intro cinematic to the game, which was released several years ago, if you watched the intro cinematic to the game, you would know that your character and some other characters are infected with tadpoles, which are basically like baby mind flayers, and that mind flayer is that creature right there. And these end up growing in the brain and turning the person who's infected into a mind flayer. That's traditionally how it works, but I'm not going to give any spoilers for how it works in Baldur's Gate 3. But with that said, these tadpole powers in BG3 are unique, and they seem to offer the player the opportunity to grow in power, but it does come at a cost. And Larian is not telling us what that cost is, which is, of course, that would be a major spoiler because then you wouldn't really feel the intensity of your decisions. But as they say right here, while these creatures may be a source of great power, all that they offer comes with a cost. As the parasite's host, you must make a choice. Will you resist the powers and the corruption that comes with them, or will you embrace them, risking your body, mind, and soul to save the realms or destroy them? So this is really, really cool because you can actually embrace this power that probably does feel evil, but you don't necessarily have to use it for evil. As Larian says, you can save the realms or destroy the realms. Now, I'm sure you can probably do an evil playthrough without using the tadpole powers as well, but this might be like the ultimate evil playthrough where you just embrace the powers and whatever happens happens and you just murder everything. And one of my lights actually just kind of set on fire, and I don't have a backup light, nor do I have time to get one right now, so we're just gonna have to deal with the new lighting that's currently on my face, which is not a light that I typically use for recording. Okay, so anyways, these powers can actually be unlocked through a hidden skill tree, the Illithid Power skill tree, and Larian did show it to us right here. I did also do a more in-depth video going over a few of these skills, looking at some of the B-roll footage that Larian provided a few of us with. So if you want to see that, I will leave a link below. So basically how it's going to work is there are 25 powerful Mind Flayer inspired abilities, completely separate to the options that you have when you level up in a traditional sense. So if you feel like Dungeons & Dragons leveling up is a little bit too slow and max level 12 in Baldur's Gate 3 just isn't enough to satisfy your character progression and development, maybe you consider, dipping into the Illithid powers here. So you're gaining more powers more often, although it does come at a cost. Are you willing to accept that cost without knowing what it is? And the powers are also divided into 5 branches. You have manipulation, health restoration, psionics, and then also damage over time. And Larian also shows us a little video here of someone turning into a displacer beast. Not sure if this is like druid specific. I don't know if like each brain, depending on what class you play, has different skills or abilities, but they don't specify druid right here, so perhaps it's for everyone, but I'm not entirely sure. Also keep in mind, one of the costs of dipping into these powers too much is that not everyone in your party will agree to it. So maybe you really like certain companions and they don't agree with your philosophy on dipping into these powers. So that's another separate cost on top of whatever the major cost is that Larian's not telling us about. And also companions can consume parasites to gain their powers. I'm not sure if that's going to be completely player controlled or if maybe a few of them will do it on their own. It'll be interesting find out. Okay, the next section is announcing Baldur's Gate 3 Twitch drops. So if you tune in to certain streams on August 3rd at 9 a.m. Pacific time and you hang out for 2 hours, you can end up getting these rewards, which are in-game for Baldur's Gate 3, and they're camp clothes, so really not that significant. But if you really love this purple, I guess, I mean, you'll be able to dye this too, so I guess you could change the colors. If this is really something you love, then make sure to tune in and watch 2 hours of Baldur's Gate 3 on Twitch. And this campaign will go from August 3rd all the way to August 17th, so you can do this at any time. You can even, when you go to bed, just set your phone on a Twitch stream that's watching Baldur's Gate 3. But hey, we all know everybody cool is watching YouTube streamers, right? We might not have the purple whitey tighties or the thongs or the G-strings, but I'll tell you what, we got the jokes. Okay, moving on. Meet the phenomenal extended cast of Baldur's Gate 3, and then Larian did include a link to a YouTube video that they released 4 days ago, and in this trailer, it shows you one of the game's villains named Orin. really, really brutal, horrifying, but intriguing character. And this character is voiced by Maggie Robertson. So I'll leave a link to this trailer if you missed it. Such a cool villain. Honestly, by far my favorite over the other two that have been revealed, and I cannot wait to explore this character in the game. And then we have a shout out to J.K. Simmons and Jason Isaacs, two very well-known actors and voice actors that are going to be voicing some of the other antagonists in the game. We have Amelia Tyler, who is the voice actress for Malady in Divinity Original Sin 2, who is now the narrator for Baldur's Gate 3, and she does an absolutely wonderful job, one of the best in the business, if you ask me. Vinegar Strokes, from the West End musical Everybody's Talking About Jamie, is going to be playing as Lucretius in Baldur's Gate 3, the proud leader of an extraplanar circus filled with mummies, redcaps, Ginny, dryads, and elementals. So now we have a new character named Lucretius, and also we know we're going to be going to an extraplanar circus, which should be really fun, Larian Studios style. Really excited to explore that. Sophia Namvit, fresh from her role in Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, and do have a picture of her right here so you guys can see who she is. Some of you guys will recognize that face right away. And she's going to be the voice actress for Captain Grizzly, a former pirate who retired from a life terrorizing the Sea of Swords to become the proud owner of the Blushing Mermaid, one of the roughest taverns in Baldur's Gate 3. So when we eventually make it to the city, definitely check out the Blushing Mermaid, but you may want to consider respecing your character and taking the Tavern Brawler feat, because sometimes it can be quite crazy in there. And then here at the bottom, one of the coolest announcements here in this section is Doug Cockle, the voice of Geralt of Rivia from the Witcher series, but we don't know what character he's going to be playing. And then Abigail Thorne of the Fantastic Philosophy Tube, among many, many more. I'm not sure who Abigail is. The next section deals with respecing your party and forging your ultimate dream team, and basically it's just telling you can respec your own character to a different class if you want to. You can respec the origin characters, and you can respec the companions as well. But when you do respec companions and origin characters, this might mess up their theme a little bit, their lore a little bit. And Larian says, if you're opting for a non-cleric Shadowheart or a Will without his Warlock Pact, this will undoubtedly influence your roleplay options and dialogues and the overall narrative for these characters, but their stories will be yours instead to create. So keep that in mind. So I know many of you, including myself, will not be changing companions and origin characters base classes because we want their class to fit their story, and I don't want to mess with that on my first run, but I'll definitely be changing their subclasses around, and maybe on a future run mess with that. Larian's giving you the option though to do what you want. How much it's going to affect the overall narrative if you change Will to be a fighter, I'm not entirely sure, but I will talk about this in a future video when I can talk about the full game, and I've experienced that myself. Now, the next section is launch day, which shows the global launch times, and I do have to say this, believe it or not, I can't say believe it or not, I do stupid things all the time. This is the global launch, so everybody's getting access to this game at the same moment in time, but there's different time zones. Okay, so if you're in New Zealand and you use a VPN to act like you're in New York, you're not going to get the game any earlier. It's still going to be 3 a.m. in New Zealand. Okay, so happy to clear that up for a few of you. Now, we also know that preloading the game is not going to happen. We have an official confirmation on that. Now, whether or not keeping early access on your computer is going to make a difference or not, it seemed like Sven was saying that it probably won't, because the new game file is so big it's going to overwrite basically the entirety of the early access file. But I think it probably doesn't matter if you leave it installed or you uninstall it. Do whatever you want. We don't have an official response on that, but no big deal either way. And we also know that the game is going to be approximately 122 gigabytes in size. I did say 150 a video or two ago, so I apologize for that. Looks like we have an official 122 here, or approximately 122. And lastly, in this section, purchases of Baldur's Gate 3 made through Steam and GOG actually come with both PC and Mac access. The Mac version is set to arrive after our PC launch, so we don't have an official Mac release yet, but Mac players, look into GeForce Now, because you could technically play on August 3rd through GeForce Now, the streaming service, and then when it comes out on Mac, switch over to actually playing it on Mac, and you wouldn't have to buy the game twice if you bought the game on Steam. And the next section is cross-save compatibility, basically just saying that regardless of what you're playing Baldur's Gate 3 on, there are cloud saves. So you can be playing on your PC, and then a month later when it comes out on PlayStation, switch over to PlayStation and still play your same characters. But keep in mind, if you did do PC to PS5, you would have to buy the game twice. And cross save, of course, also works from PC to Mac. Now, in terms of cross play, meaning PC players playing with their PlayStation friends in the same game world, We have no news on that. So as of now, I would say no, but maybe Larian will update us on that in the future. You can, however, cross-play from PC to Mac or the Steam store to the GOG store. It just doesn't work, or at least we don't know anything about it from PC to console itself, but cross-save has been confirmed for all devices. And then also we got some news on the Steam Deck. So Larian is saying basically that you will be able to play Baldur's Gate 3 on your Steam Deck on launch, and they're aiming for Steam Deck verified by August 3rd's launch date. So all of you guys that want to try it on the Steam Deck, go right ahead on August 3rd when we get access to the game. And then we have a section on 4K requirements in ultra-wide support. Baldur's Gate 3 can be played in 4K and on ultra-wide monitors. We created a pipeline that meant that all cinematics in the game were created in a way that supports those of you with a penchant for excess. Let's have a look. And then we have a few screenshots here. Really cool. Those of you guys that have wide monitors, I think the game's going to look super, super cool. You, of course, can't really see really much from these pictures, but at least we know that it's confirmed. The purple bars in the images above show the 16:9 cutoff. So then you can see the other bars for wider screen monitors. They have like a little diagram there representing that. Then we have some PC requirements here. So with a good CPU and a GeForce 3060, you can play at 1440p at 60 FPS. Native 4K will require double fill rate, so we recommend using a top-end GeForce 4080, 4090, or AMD equivalent. And of course, with DLSS, you can reach 4K with lower requirements, thanks to the wizards at NVIDIA. And on to the final two sections of the video. Romantic Alchemy, Finding Love in Baldur's Gate 3. And we have a nice picture of Gale and Shadowheart sitting here on the grass in front of what appears to be something similar to the Northern Lights. Now, Larian did a really good job explaining this, so I'm just going to read this section. Throughout your journey, you'll forge genuine connections with those you venture with. These can flourish into relationships that add gravity to every decision you make in the game, and you're free to pursue them through deliberation, choice, and consequences. However, you're also able to back out of them at any moment, change your mind, or fall in love with someone else. So Larian's giving us a lot of agency over romance and who and when we want to pursue romance. What's more, in some cases, you can even form polyamorous relationships. As someone who tried this in The Witcher 3, be careful, okay? It doesn't always work in your favor. To offer further clarity on exactly who can romance who in Baldur's Gate 3, we've laid it out in the least romantic way possible. So a played origin can romance an NPC origin. An NPC origin cannot romance an NPC origin. A played origin cannot romance other player origins. And then Larian also touches on if you're playing multiplayer, but the romance system, the relationship system in Baldur's Gate 3 is designed for romancing NPCs only. However, Larian has given you a solution to this, and that is if you and your co-op partner both kiss your monitors at the same time, the static shock you'll experience produces a heart racing effect similar to the feeling of love. However, go to the hospital immediately if you begin to feel pain or numbness. So Larian added in a little bit of humor there into their community update. And the last section deals with untangling dialogue. Whose line is it anyways? And the first part actually is the most important, in my opinion, because we already know the other part, and that is that there will be dialogue history text that you can read in this game. So after you finish dialogue, if you want to go back and reread that conversation or reread it in the future, you can do that. But you can also do it when you're in dialogue itself. So if you forgot what you said, or you need a kind of recap of the conversation before you make another response, you can look at the history of that. Amazing feature for a game that focuses so heavily on dialogue. I'm going to be using it all the time because I don't always soak things in on the first listen. In the second half of this section, basically just reconfirms to us that typically the character who initiates a conversation in both single player and multiplayer hosts that conversation. But in multiplayer, the other players can witness the conversation by clicking on the appropriate icon or character, which will allow them to vote on the host character's choices in dialogue. But the host is ultimately the one responsible to make that choice and the one whose skill checks and proficiencies are going to be used. So this is one of the biggest complaints that I've seen in the community. Hopefully in Larian's next game, maybe they can address this a little bit better, because a lot of people do enter into unexpected dialogue and then they want a different character to step in because that character might be more charismatic. Typically in this game, that's not how it's going to work. Although Larian does say in some cases you can back out of the conversation and re-enter it with another character in single player. Also, in multiplayer, you'll have the option to set certain dialogues to private, so your teammates won't be able to listen in on them. I think that's a really cool feature to have that option available. It should be fun in multiplayer if there's certain things you're trying to keep from your friends. And then Larian also reminds us that there are no wrong answers in this game, that they spent ample amount of time handling the permutations, and if something doesn't go as planned for you, the event that does take place, even though maybe initially you didn't want that, should be equally as entertaining and offer plenty of content to go with it. And that is basically it for this community update. I have to get back to doing things. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and were able to get this little update that we got from Larian, and I'll catch you all on the next one.